Mr. Kazire.
Present.
Mrs. Greiner.
Present.
Ms. Hardiman.
Present.
Ms. Myers.
Present.
Dr. Ozello.
Present.
Mr. Peters.
Present.
Mr. Tripp.
Here. If you all would all please rise and join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Is there a motion to approve our agenda for tonight?
I move that the board approves the agenda as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Agenda is approved. Next, we have approval of our minutes. Is there a motion?
I move that the minutes from the work session and workshop meetings of January 14th, 2025 be approved as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion regarding our minutes? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The minutes are approved. Next up, we have public participation. It's an opportunity for members of the public to address the board regarding any agenda items or other matters of concerns. We do have one member of the public who wishes to speak, and that would be Lisa Lima. If you would, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and address the board. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm Lisa Lima, 1000 South Main Street, Council Bluffs, Iowa. Thank you for letting me speak, Dr. Murillo and School Board. Thank you. I appreciate it. I just wanted to speak from a personal viewpoint about immigration. I know that this week, I learned last night that Omaha is having a number of raids this week. So that not only concerns Omaha members, but over here, it'll trickle over here as to concern to the families. And myself and my family experienced ICE in 2018, and they detained my husband for 5 months. And the trauma that we all faced behind this was just, the magnitude was huge. We had to go to therapy for years. And being a Caucasian person, I can only imagine that maybe I had a little bit of a step up over some people in terms of working the system or, being able to find services that I needed. But I just want to know that you all to know and recognize that the members of our community are going to be so upset and traumatized and fearful. And I just wanted you to hear my little part of that as a member of the community. And I hope that, you take that into consideration. I talked with Mayor Walsh last night, and he said he's going to put out a statement. And I just hope that our school board, acknowledges what the students might be going through. My student that's at Kern has memorized the Know Your Rights pamphlet from the ACLU and feels prepared, but it doesn't mean that her classmates are. So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lisa. Is there any other member of the public who would like to speak tonight?
Yeah, I've read through it.
Seeing as there is none,
Memorized, but-
we will move on to our superintendent's report. Dr. Murillo.
Thank you, Mr. Tripp. At this time, I'd like to invite Ms. Comine to the podium. Tonight, we are recognizing some pretty terrific students and some amazing staff. So, Ms. Comine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Murillo, and thank you, President Tripp and members of the board. At this time, I would like to invite President Tripp and Dr. Murillo to the front to help us recognize our star students tonight. Tonight we have the pleasure of recognizing 2 young musicians from Wilson Middle School who have achieved an exceptional honor by being selected into the Opus Honor Choir and the All Iowa 8th Grade Honor Band. These students prepared and participated in a rigorous audition process where their music skills and dedication were put to the test. This achievement reflects not only their hard work, but also the outstanding music education in our district. It is with great pride that we recognize the following students for their remarkable achievements. The first student is Randy Ottison. Randy was selected by audition to perform in the prestigious Opus Honor Choir. Congratulations, Randy. Our second student is Ava Gilpin. Ava earned first chair at the Southwest Iowa Band Association District Honor Band, qualifying her for the state level All Iowa 8th Grade Honor Band. And also this evening, I would like to acknowledge the teachers who have guided, inspired, and supported these students along their musical journeys. Krista Walter is our choir teacher at Wilson Middle School. And Leah Ann Martik is Wilson's band director. And also with us tonight is Elmer Ellefson, our K-12 Visual and Performing Arts Curriculum Specialist.
Dr. Merlot, after this large group, could we take the two separate groups then, too? Thank you. Could we have each individual girl and her teacher with Dr. Morello and Mr. Tripp? Thank you. That way you can have one. There you go. Oh, Tripp, well, I know. but- Thank you.
Okay, next we have our licensed and support staff members for the month of December. First up is our licensed staff member of the month, who is Marla Schoening, ALHS art teacher. Marla, please come up. Marla is a passionate educator who gives her best even when she's dealing with other challenges. She really values relationships with both staff and students feel safe and welcomed in her room. Marla is an active listener who asks questions and tries to get to know her students below the surface level. Julia McGuigan, the colleague who nominated Marla, writes, "As a new teacher, I've been inspired by Marla's pedagogy. She invited my students and I into her room during her plan time to co-teach a clay lesson, and her enthusiasm for the medium was clear. Her teaching motivated and engaged even my most talkative students. Marla is engaging and entertaining and knows how to get kids' attention by incorporating humor and voice inflection to her teaching. I feel it is this kind of selflessness and dedication that is deserving of recognition." Congratulations, Marla.
Bridget, you want to get in and I'll use your camera? Yes, wonderful.
Next is our support staff member of the month, April Hill, Edison Elementary's Library and Media Associate. April has been with the district for 7 years. April demonstrates a genuine willingness to help the students and staff at Edison. She takes on regular roles such as greeting students in the morning, helping with our early bird club to improve school attendance, lunch, and crosswalk duties. She is also eager to use her joy of literacy to increase student success. Most recently, she has taken on adding a special read aloud for our newcomers to help grow their language and vocabulary. April Hill is all in for Edison and is happy to help everyone around her to be their best. Congratulations, April.
No, I didn't hear.
Julie? Julie, would you?
mark.
Would you like
mark
to?
two.
Julie, would you like to thank the foundation for this?
And thank you to the Council Bluffs Community Schools Foundation, who provides these awards.
Congratulations again to our students and our staff. Way to be awesome. Continue your path of awesomeness. I appreciate it. All right, and that brings us to the business portion of our meeting tonight with resolutions. We will start off with employee handbook revisions. Is there a motion?
I move that the board approves the employee handbook revisions as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board regarding the handbook revisions? Hold on a second. Let's wait for Dave to come back. I didn't realize that he had left the table.
Sorry.
No, you're fine, Dave. Thank you for providing that information to them. We have a motion and a second regarding the proposed handbook revisions. Is there any discussion from the board?
I just have a question that's more related to one of our revisions. I was just curious with our pet therapy, how many staff utilize pet therapy in our schools?
I'm going to ask Ms. Foster to come join us. She's been working closely on this item.
Yes, you know, that number does vary depending on the year and the building. Most buildings probably have one. I think Wilson right now has 3. So it really just depends on the building. You know, it is something that, it's a balance. You know, it's something that we know everybody loves dogs. But at the same time, we want to make sure that the animal is able to be cared for and that it's appropriate for the learning environment. And we want to make sure that each year we approve them to make sure they've got all their vaccinations and everything is still all in order.
Thank you.
And then I guess just the handbook change on page 31, moving it from the 15th to the last working day, is that just because of like the scheduling, not conflicts, but changes? Yeah, so there we go. Thanks.
Yes, it is. Any other discussion? Nope. I really appreciate the format this is in, by the way. It's very easy to read and concise, showing what exactly is there and what's being changed instead of having to read through the entirety of the policy each time with things not being correct.
Yeah, we also have that on the junior ROTC agenda item. I appreciated to see the changes, so thank you.
Any further discussion? As there is none, Mrs. Strauski, please call our roll.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Ms. Hardiman?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Dr. Rosello?
Yes.
Mrs. Greiner?
Yes.
And the motion carries. Next, we have approval of agreement with Raptor Technologies. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the agreement with Raptor Technology as presented.
Second?
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion regarding Raptor Emergency Management Technologies contract? If you recall, we did have a presentation on this last meeting, very comprehensive, from Mr. Stile and Mr. Hamilton. Anything further from the board regarding this? Any comments?
Just appreciation for that presentation and answering all our questions. I know that was a pretty lengthy set of questions that we kind of put put Mr. Stile through. But I'm looking forward to this agreement getting hopefully approved and moving forward.
When we were going through the policy review, we found out that Raptor will also be attached to the sign-in format. And they will randomly, and I think, it wasn't each time someone checked in, or was it? But they'll be doing background checks, little things, checking them against the sex abuse files and child predator, all of the things that we would normally have to do manually will now be done through Raptor.
All right, again, thank you to all the staff that did all the research and put all the time in, reviewing all the different products that were out there and coming to a conclusion that this was the best option for our district. Mrs. Straussky, please call our roll.
Mrs. Greiner.
Yes.
Ms. Myers.
Yes.
Dr. Ozello.
Yes.
Mr. Tripp.
Yes.
Mr. Kozire.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Ms. Hardeman.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Next, we have SBRC spending authority request for the 2025-26 at-risk dropout prevention. Is there a motion?
I move that the board approves to request from SBRC $2,616,179 of modified supplemental amount, MSA, associated with the at-risk and dropout prevention program for the 2025-26 school year.
Second?
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board? Sure.
As you notice, that this is for next year's, so this is really the board approving this modified supplemental amount that we will then send to SBRC to be approved for the following school year. It is kind of an annual thing that the state does require.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Mrs. Straussky, please call our roll.
Ms. Myers.
Yes.
Dr. Ozello.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mr. Tripp.
Yes.
Mr. Kozire.
Yes.
Ms. Hardeman.
Yes.
Mrs. Greiner.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Next, we have BBH Architecture for schematic drawings related to the TJ High School auditorium and lobby project. Is there a motion?
I move that the board approve the agreement with BBH Architects for the schematic drawings related to the Thomas Jefferson High School auditorium and lobby projects in the amount of $155,000.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion from the board regarding this?
I just have kind of a general question, and you probably have been through this when the AL auditorium went through too. So I was looking at the contract, and there were some not provided items that if we would need them, we would have to pay for them, obviously, that weren't included in the contract. Do we foresee needing any of those supplemental services, or?
Not at this time.
Okay.
There is a last sheet that if we bought additional services, what that cost would be.
Yeah.
In talking with BBH, this is not to exceed, doesn't believe it will be a final count of this, but this just kind of pads plus the 10% of anything else happening. So it is something that, it was 123, I believe, thousand for the AL auditorium. I'm trying to pull that figure out in my head right now, and I feel like it's like 123,400 or something like that about a couple of years ago. So it is a little bit more, but the Thomas Jefferson Auditorium is twice the size.
Right, yeah.
That we're covering the square foot.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Mrs. Straussky, please call our roll.
Mr. Tripp.
Yes.
Mrs. Greiner.
Yes.
Ms. Hardeman.
Yes.
Ms. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Kozire.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Dr. Ozello.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Next up, we have resolution for Thomas Jefferson High School auditorium audio, light, and sound upgrade. Is there a motion?
I move that the board approve Heartland Scenic Studio Incorporated for the purchase of new lighting, sound, and stage rigging systems in the amount of $419,531.98.
Thank you.
Second?
Now we have a motion and a second. Anything further regarding this state-of-the-art stage lighting, sound, and rigging systems?
I appreciate that when we talked about this at the work session, that we got kind of a general estimate, and this is under that, so I appreciate that.
All right. And I think if I remember right, when we had that in the working session, that this was kind of the piece that there was most concern about possibly being delays. That's part of why we're making this like first out of all the purchase agreements.
That's a very good point, if I might take a point for a minute.
Mhm.
The rigging and the theatrical side is so slow that they tell, for the community to understand, it can take up to 12 to 15 months to get this equipment in. It has been, 10 or so years, the sound system and everything has just been kind of left and not upgraded. And so it is something that we want to make sure before that the auditorium is done. But the other point that I wanted to make is that we will go out to bid with BBH once the scope of work is done, and we'll bid for a contractor. But this work with the theatrical really takes a specialized company with specialized certification for hanging of the rigging and everything, and that's why we need to get out in front before we bid the contract out. It would not be done by a general contractor.
Thank you for that, Dr. Murillo. Anything further from the board? Mrs. Strowski, please call our roll.
Mrs. Greiner.
Yes.
Dr. Rosello.
Yes.
Mr. Kozier.
Yes.
Ms. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Tripp.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Ms. Hardeman.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Next, we have approval of supplemental elementary special education ELA resources. Is there a motion?
I move that the board approves the supplemental elementary special education English language arts resource, University of Florida Literacy Institute Foundations.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion from the board regarding this? Seeing as there is none, Mrs. Strowski, please call our roll.
Ms. Hardeman.
Yes.
Ms. Myers.
Yes.
Mr. Kozier.
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Mr. Tripp.
Yes.
Dr. Rosello.
Yes.
Mrs. Greiner.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Last of our resolutions, we have healthcare services agreement with CHI. Is there a motion?
I move that the board approves the healthcare services agreement with CHI as presented.
Thank you.
I will second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion regarding this agreement? Go ahead,
Should we
please.
talk through this? Yeah.
I'm going to ask Ms. Foster to join me again. This is a really positive step for us. When we signed with Aetna and then lost, they had some contract negotiation that they could not reach an agreement on. And I really want to give thanks to Ms. Foster and her team in HR for really working through and working with CHI. So Ms. Foster, if you'll give a little high level for our community and our staff to hear about what this board item is.
Yes. When we signed with Aetna, one of our more popular plans was a broad network plan, and a lot of our employees chose it because CHI was included. CHI and Aetna announced I think in August, that their contract was coming to an end in November, and we signed in July. So Aetna worked really hard to try and come to an agreement, and they just were not able to. But on the good side, we were able to model a similar contract that Millard Schools has with CHI, so that we are contracting with them separately to provide those same services so that our employees can still see their doctors. And I think for quite a few of them, it's their specialists that are in the CHI network, that they don't really have any other options. So for the cost for the district between now and July, when we'll, have a new rate and things like that, will be approximately $4 per member. So per member per month. It comes to about just a little under $25,000 between now and July. And after July, then we can figure out how to fit that into our regular premiums. But it will allow, as of February 1, for our members to again access their doctors through CHI.
And Julie, tell them about the cost of being in-network versus out-of-network. What our employees are going to be able to save.
Well, if an employee goes out of network, of course, they're paying the out-of-network price, which is much higher, and it goes towards their deductible, which for the broad network is $6,500. So for someone who thought they were going to be in network and they're just paying co-pays, to now have to figure out how to come up with $6,500 a year extra to see their doctors, it's a huge burden on some of our folks, especially who have some chronic illnesses. Yep. Yep, we have a communication prepared to send out to our staff tomorrow morning to notify them of the change and to let them know that they can go back to their broad network, access those physicians that they have, and also to make sure that they have the information so that when they go to their provider, because of course, you know, as these things change, providers are like, wait, I thought you weren't in our network anymore. Here's the information, so they can take that to their provider, show, yes, we are back in network, everything is good. And then if folks have problems, our brokers are prepared to help us navigate that and make sure that these claims are covered.
Awesome.
That continuity of care for especially chronic individuals is so wonderful. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I'm really happy that we were kind of with Millard School District and creating the model so that we know it's not us out there by ourselves trying to make this happen, but another big school district is working on that. So
Yep.
you and Kelly did a great job. Thank you.
Well, and we really appreciate you approving it. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, this is definitely a win.
Big win for-
Contract negotiated by the school and extra premium paid for by the school, so no cost transfer to the staff. That's pretty amazing. All right, any further discussion from the board? Mrs. Strowski, please call our roll.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
Mrs. Greiner?
Yes.
Ms. Hardeman?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
I'm going to abstain since I'm a CHI employee.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Dr. Ozello?
Yes.
And Mr. Peters?
Yes.
And the motion carries. All right, now we have our consent agenda. On our consent agenda this evening, we gratefully acknowledge and accept donation from the Knights of Columbus. Thank you very much for the $500.72 that goes towards our special education department. Air Force Junior Reserve Officer Training Corps, memorandum of agreement, approval of MOU for the school-based therapy for integrated therapy resources, special education amendment to the Transition Alliance Program, contract number 20-TAP-12, Exhibit B, special education contract with Grafton School, Inc., Eucaro Crisis Prevention Training, special education Southwest Iowa Apex Glenwood, special education contract Glenwood Community Schools, special education contract Alpha School, special education contract with Heartland Schools Omaha. Our personnel agenda and financials for December 24th. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
I move that we approve our consent agenda as presented.
I will second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion regarding consent agenda items? Ms. Ostrowski, please call our roll.
Ms. Hardeman?
Yes.
Ms. Myers?
Yes.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Mr. Tripp?
Yes.
Mrs. Greiner?
Yes.
Dr. Ozello?
Yes.
Mr. Kazire?
Yes.
And the consent agenda is approved. Before we adjourn, I just wanted to address the elephant in the room, I suppose. There's been a lot of rumors and discussion regarding recent changes to our federal immigration policy. The district is following this very closely and has provided resources to the staff to ensure that we are aware of what's going on and we can assist our students where necessary. Also, it has provided resources under the district website. It's under the Parents and Students tab, and this has a frequently asked questions with links to local resources. So please feel free to call or email the district if you have any further questions or you have troubles locating the FAQ page. Feel free to reach out to the board as well should you have anything further you just need to know, need to ask, or want to find out about. Anything further from the board regarding that?
I just want to comment that I think it's good that we put together this sort of FAQ page. It's a very tumultuous time right now, and we're still very much keeping an eye on what happens at the federal level and state level, and we have to ensure that any policies or procedures that we do line with state guidelines and federal guidelines. But I think having this to answer a lot of the common questions that have been coming up is very important, especially, outlining that, we're only going to work, specifically with either federal law enforcement or Council Bluffs Police Department. I think that's very important. So I think this is an important thing to get out.
Thank you, Ms. Hughes.
I also want to thank the district. I emailed pretty early on, and I said I thought they were probably already on top of this, and they were, so I appreciate that.
Thank you, Ms. Schreiner. And one last thing, just an important role we can all play is to let our families know that we have safeguards in place. The laws guarantee that all students receive a free public education, regardless of their immigration status. Council Bluffs Community Schools does not collect or maintain any information about a student's immigration status. And requests from the immigration officials to access information or communicate with the student will be immediately referred to the school district official. Law enforcement action involving our students must comply with legal authority. All these things are located on that FAQ page that we have. So please take a look at that. It should answer a lot of questions you have and help ease any concerns that might be on you.
On the website, it is then in other languages as well. Yeah. Right, we have it translated on the website, just so if they have access, they will be able to read it in the language that they're familiar with.
All right, well, thank you very much. Our meeting is adjourned.